This is a big fad catching on, cold
Yeah.
plunging. And I've seen a lot of different versions of it. We get a lot of videos of people jumping in oceans or jumping in frozen lakes. So, can you start by telling me what actually qualifies as a cold plunge?
So a cold plunge is where you're jumping into or plunging into a body of cold water. And usually, what we define as the measure for a cold plunge is around 50 degrees. Now, we don't do a very scientific measurement of the temperature, but that's typically the temperature that we see. And that can either be in a pool, in the ocean, it could be in a barrel. That's what people are doing nowadays. Thor's doing it, Chris Hemsworth. So if it's good enough for Thor, it's good enough for the rest of us.
Well, it looks truly awful. It looks torturous. What are the benefits?
We really don't know what the benefits are of a cold plunge. We do know that cold can be very helpful, such as ice, when we have a sore muscle or initially when we have some injury, because in the short term, it reduces inflammation, it helps with pain. I don't know if we can translate that to immersing yourself or plunging yourself into very cold water. Basically, the cold plunge is a shock to your system. It's a stress on your system. And that's where the concern is. Because what's happening is you're shunting, you're moving blood from your extremities to your heart, your brain, your lungs, because they view this as a stress. So what happens is after a few minutes, you may actually lose some movement in your extremities, in your hands and your legs, because you're shunting blood to your heart. It also causes a phenomenon called vasoconstriction, which means you clamp down on your blood vessels because you're trying to preserve oxygen. So if you have high blood pressure, you have a history of heart disease, that can potentially cause a problem.
So there are some dangers. There's a lot of claims and they seem kind of speculation,
Mhm.
like it may reduce inflammation, it may help recovery for athletes. Are there studies being done on the benefits and the drawbacks?
There's a lot of discussion around, does it help with our lymphatic system, which removes toxins from our body? Does it help with immune function? I got to tell you, there's more data on infrared saunas heat than there actually is in these cold plunges. Now, if someone's considering a cold plunge, you definitely should talk to your doctor about it first, because underlying heart disease, high blood pressure, other disease conditions can put you at greater risk. You should never do it yourself. You should always have a buddy, a friend with you if you're going to do it in case there is an issue. And I tell people, if you want to try it, acclimate yourself. Do it slowly. Maybe just spend a couple of minutes. Maybe don't aim for that 50 degrees or 55 degrees. Do it a little warmer. And then it's also important to keep in mind when you come out of a plunge, you take your clothes off, you take that bathing suit off, you put on warm clothes, you have a warm drink, you wrap yourself in a warm towel. What I don't want you to do is go immediately from a cold plunge to a hot tub or to a really hot shower, because that's another shock on your system because you're going from very cold to very hot. And as we get older, it's hard to make that accommodation to those big changes in temperature. And you actually can vasodilate and become dizzy.
Oof, okay, good to know because I did that. Um,
I know a lot of people do that. And here's the thing, when you're younger and your body can respond to stress, it's safer. My concern, particularly, is for those people that are on medications, that are older, that really aren't very fit in terms of they're trying to make changes and they may see this as a way to help. It could, but you should talk to your doctor about it and do it slowly.
I've also heard that when you do plunge, it's a good idea to go up to your neck.
So when we talk about a plunge, and sometimes we get caught up in words, you plunge, which means you go in, but you don't submerge. So you don't put your head underwater. Because I'll tell you, 50-degree temperature is when there can be particular danger to your body. So what happens is if you submerge yourself, you go completely underwater, and then you start to inhale water because you may not be used to it, that can fill up your lungs and that can put you at significant risk of drowning. So keep your head above water on those plunges.
Is this a similar situation to like is it cryotherapy where you're just basically in like a freezer? Is it the same sort of process?
Yeah, it's somewhat different because, and here's a fun fact, you lose 25 times as more heat in water than you do in air. 25 times more. So that's where you really can become at risk of hypothermia, low body temperature. You can see that in some of these cryotherapies and freezers. That's always would be my nightmare that you'd be locked in a freezer. But the difference is air, it's still an issue, but water, that's why it's particularly dangerous because you're losing heat so much more quickly.
Is a good way to start with maybe just like turning your shower cold for 30 seconds towards the
Yeah.
end?
A good way could be a good way could be making the shower cold. People don't like cold showers, and then they want to do a cold plunge. The issues with the polar bear plunges and others, the advantage to that is usually that's done in a controlled environment. It's done very quickly with a lot of other people. They have the appropriate medical personnel, on standby. And, it's not something that you have to completely rule out. You just want to be mindful and use your common sense. If you're having some health conditions, it might be something that you want to slowly try, but the benefits are mostly anecdotal, meaning we don't really have any controlled studies that show it truly is a benefit.
But you do have controlled studies about the infrared sauna, and I'm glad you brought that up because I did have a question kind of going the opposite direction of
That's a
heat
whole
and
nother
what
topic. We did a
I
whole
know, I
thing on.
know. But
Yeah.
can you mention it quickly? Because I'm just curious why there is more research backing that heat side of things than the
Yeah.
cold side of things.
There's a whole section of medicine that deals with thermogenesis, which deals with heat. And what's happening with heat, remember, we're tropical creatures by nature. We like warm more than we do like cold. And in controlled thermogenesis, controlled heat, like an infrared sauna, we're going to stress our body again, but we're going to do it in a way that we're going to increase our heart rate, increase our blood pressure in small ways that can really simulate the benefits of exercise. So there does seem to be some value for the role of sauna. In some areas of the world, particularly in Norwegian countries and Finland, saunas are a natural part of their lives. They have saunas in their home. They spend 15 to 20 minutes in there, particularly in a dry sauna, and we're starting to see some health benefits of that.
What are the benefits?
What the benefits are that it's really like exercising. It's not quite the same, and you can't substitute going in the sauna for the same as exercise, but it's really helping your cardiometabolic fitness because it's increasing your heart rate. It's increasing your blood pressure just for brief periods of time, just as exercise would do. So it's increasing our oxygen capacity. Remember, it's very different than going in very cold water, which shunts your blood from your extremities to your heart and your lungs and your brain, and that makes your extremities weak. That doesn't happen in an infrared sauna. Now, again, you don't spend an hour in a sauna, you spend 5, 10 minutes, and that's where you get the benefit. The real concern is that people go in these tubs, they think it's like a hot tub where you stay in there 15 to 20 minutes. And the problem there is that this is a big stress on your body. And the fact that you can lose awareness of your extremities and then you actually can't move very well. That's a problem. That's why you need to have a buddy. It's very different if you just jump in and then you come out. That's still something that you want to think carefully about. But staying in there for 10 or 15 minutes at that cold temperature, less than 50 degrees, really can be a risk to your body. There's actually another thing, this is more complicated, but if you stay in longer term, what happens is when you re-equilibrate, so you come out, you've been in there 10, 15 minutes, remember you've lost blood circulation in your extremities, you start to get it back, but it's cooler, then your heart still is getting this cold blood. You're still at risk of hypothermia. 30 minutes, an hour after you come out. That's for people that are staying in there 15, 30 minutes, not people that are, just plunging like the polar thing you see. They go in and then they come right out.
Right.
Half of them don't even go all the way in. This is a great topic. I was glad to see it covered because I've been asked by a lot of people about it and I've thought about it, but I ultimately decided, I don't know, I tried the sauna first. The big issue here is because you lose so much heat in water versus air. That's why it's really a risk.
And that is a scientific process that very much relates back to weather and meteorology because of heat capacity of water versus air. So I like that.
That's a good point. Yeah, see, we're all tied together.
Absolutely.
Always great talking to you.
Great to talk to you too. Thank you so much, Dr. Whyte.